What's going on, guys? Welcome back. My name is Brandon, and by request, we've got a brand new welder we're going to be breaking out today. We're going to be welding some steel. And for those of you that commented and reached out with your well wishes and prayers because I was battling COVID, I want to thank you guys. And if you haven't felt quite right, or maybe you've had COVID or know someone that does, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about it towards the end of the video. Maybe you'll find it interesting. Stick around. So here it is. This is the YesWelder MIG 250 Pro. You guys have been asking about it. You guys know that I'm always looking for budget welders, and this is an awesome welder for someone who's either just starting out or even someone who's very experienced. At the time of this publication, this welder is about $540. Now, this is a multi-process welder, and the one reason that I really got this welder, guys, they claim it'll run aluminum wire through the MIG gun without a spool gun. And that's why I bought this welder, guys, because I want to set this up and have it exclusively just for aluminum. Now, I don't want to bore you with a whole bunch of details, guys, so I'm going to try to make this quick and pack in a lot of stuff real fast. So this is a 220 volt welder only, so this isn't dual voltage. You're going to have to plug this into a 220 volt power source. It's a 250 amp source, so this will easily weld up to 1/4 inch mild plate steel, no problem. As I said, this is an inverter machine, so it'll do MIG, TIG, stick, it'll do solid wire, it'll do flux core, it'll weld steel, it'll weld aluminum, stainless steel, carbon steel, everything pretty much, except it won't do AC aluminum welding. So with most machines, guys, these are all the basic things that you're going to receive with it. You're going to get your stinger lead, that's for stick welding. You're going to get your ground lead or your earth, that's right here. You've got your MIG gun, which has the ball and socket, which is very similar to my Fronius equipment. It's got the European style connector on the end, which is very typical, and it's the same one that I have on my Fronius. Now, the way they accomplish being able to feed aluminum wire through this gun is they send you a Teflon coated liner. That's not just for this welder, that's any welder. Whenever you're welding aluminum, it has to be clean, and you should have dedicated equipment just for aluminum. You can weld, you know, carbon steel, mild steel, you can use flux core wire in this, and you can use solid wire in this with the liner that comes with it. But if you're going to weld aluminum, you're going to have to pull the liner out of this gun, put in the Teflon lined liner, and then you can run the aluminum through. And the reason it has to be Teflon is because the aluminum wire is much more flexible than the regular either hard wire or flux core wire. And what will happen is it'll bird's nest all up in here. So, and they give you a good selection of drive rolls. We'll go over that as well. Construction wise, this thing is built super good. That's why I really endorse these pieces of equipment, because for guys that are just starting out welding, these are really affordable. I know that $530 or $540 sounds like a lot of money, but when you look at the fact that you're getting, you know, 3 or 4 different processes in one, this is fully synergic, but it can also be manual mode. So we'll talk about that as well. So synergic, what that is that basically you set the mode that you're welding in. So if it's MIG, you'll set it for that. Then you'll set your material thickness, and then it will set your amperage and voltage automatically. And that works exactly like my Fronius machines, and I love that feature. But you don't have to do that either. You can also do manual mode. So if you guys want to just set the amperage, because you know what you normally weld on it with another machine, you can set the amperage or you can set the voltage, however you want to do it. But it does have that automatic synergic setting. Just set it by the thickness and it'll adjust everything for you, which makes it super nice. Now, one of the things that I really like with this is look at the drive rolls. I've had some other welders where a lot of this stuff is all plastic. It'll be a plastic body or a plastic housing. Everything on this is all metal. It comes with a bunch of separate drive rolls automatically. So let's see what it's got on it right now. Now, because this is a 250 amp machine, you're going to be able to run a wide variety of wires on this. So this is 8 and 9. That is a solid groove. So that's going to be 30 and 35 thousandths. That's what this is for, 30 and 35 thousandths wire. To put these drive rolls on, guys, it's real simple. You can see there's a little keyway right there. You just line that keyway up with the keyway on the drive system and select the size wire that you want. We are going to be using 30 thousandths, so I've got it set on the slot for 8 or 0.8, and then just tighten down the nut. It comes with another 0.8 and 0.9 drive roll. Now you can see this one comes with a U on it. Okay, so this is U 0.9, so that's 35 thousandths, and 1.2, that's 3/64ths. The U signifies that this drive roll is shaped like a U, and the U is specifically for using aluminum wire. That'll keep the wire from getting crushed. That'll help shape the wire as it goes through to grab it so it has less of a tendency to bird's nest. And again, it comes with a knurled drive roller, and the knurled drive rollers, those are for flux core wire. Again, 0.8 and 0.9, so 30 and 35 thousandths flux core wire as well. This will weld a lot of different materials in a lot of different sizes, which is awesome. I personally think for the money, this welder, pound for pound, is probably the best value and the best deal you're going to get out there, because I can already tell you firsthand, I own, as I said, a lot of these YesWelders, and they're all built really well. I mean, granted, they're not Fronius built well, but they're built pretty good. You do get what you pay for. I mean, granted, these Fronius welders are, you know, like $3,000, so for like that one, versus $500 and some change for this one. But again, this is an awesome welder for the price. You won't be disappointed. So let's get this thing set up, and we'll start running some 30,000 solid wire through it. So the first thing I'm going to start out doing is getting the wire fed into the liner, into the gun. Trim it off nice. And open that up and start feeding it in. Just got to feed that wire right there down into the liner, and there it goes. Now we can put this down, and then we'll work on adjusting our tension. And a little while ago I talked about that 1.2, and I said it was 3/64ths diameter. That's also 45 thousandths too. I just wanted to clarify that. Most wires are all rated like that, you know, 23, 30, 35, 45. I've got this hooked up to some C25 gas. We'll get this turned on, we'll get the wire fed up the gun, and then we will talk about all the features that this thing has, because this is packed with a ton of features. Alright, hopefully you can hear me okay. So the next thing we're going to select is the wire type and the wire size. So by pressing this button down here, wire, where it says Synergy, you can toggle from 35 thousandths, 30 thousandths, 23 thousandths. So we're using 30 thousandths, okay? Then we're going to select our mode, and I'll briefly go through these. Let me start right at the top. So that would be manual MIG. So that would just be setting your independent settings alone. So you'd set your amperage and your voltage and your wire feed speed. You can do that using under the manual mode. That would be synergic mode. So that's the mode we're going to go into, and then all we're going to set is just our material thickness that we're going to be welding. So it already knows the wire thickness or diameter. Now we're in synergic MIG. Then you have stick welding. Then the next mode would be lift TIG. So back to here. Now we got to select our material. Okay, so what are we welding? You can see it says argon, CO2, so 7525. Fe is ferrous, so that's ferrous material, so carbon steel, low carbon, or 100% argon for stainless steel. Okay, so that would be flux core. If you were going to weld with flux core wire, you'd select that. Argon, 100%, that'd be if you're welding aluminum, so that's pretty easy. Again, I'm just hitting the material switch. And CO2, if you're using 100% CO2 for ferrous metal, or 7525, that's what we're doing. We got to toggle back to our 30 thousandths wire, and there we are. So now what we're going to do is we got to jog our wire in, and that's what we're going to do by hitting this inching button. And basically the inching button is just a jog switch. That's all. You just press it, hold it, and it will feed the wire up through the liner. I'll show you. If you watch right here, you'll see I'm going to start pressing the button. There it goes. You see that moving. And you can see on the display that as I press this and it starts ramping up, the wire speed goes faster and faster and faster as it goes. That's just to ensure that you don't get a bird's nest on that drive roll. And there we are, it's out the end. Now we'll put our nozzle back in, snug it up a little with our MIG pliers. That's what that little groove is for right there. And then put on the nozzle. Then trim it flush. There we go. The tension here, which is your drive roll tension, is also dependent on how much tension you put on this. So there's a little spring in behind here. You got to tighten this lock nut down. I make it just so that the lock nut, the threads just start to catch on the lock nut, and then I give it about a half a turn. What you're looking for is that when you pull the trigger, you don't want the wire to come unwound. You don't want the spool to keep going so that the wire will come off the reel. You see when I pull that, it stops. The reel doesn't keep going. If I had less tension on it, the reel would go and then it could just turn a little bit more, and then as the wire starts to unwind on this, the reel gets lighter and it will spin further around, and then your wire can come off, and that can be a problem. Now when I use the term bird's nest, guys, what that refers to is the wire comes off this reel and then it goes through, you can see how it's pinched between these drive rolls, then it goes out the liner and comes out the end of the gun. Well, what will happen is if you have too much tension here, there won't be any slipping of the wire in these drive rolls. So let's just say the end of your gun, for whatever reason, sometimes your wire will like fuse into the end of your contact tip if you're holding it way too close. Basically, it'll just be like a pool of lava, and it will stop your wire from feeding. Well, if this doesn't slip on this end, it's just going to start like bird's nesting. It's just going to start discharging it inside this case and making a huge mess. Then you got to cut the wire, pull it out of your liner, fix the problem, and then refeed it as though you were putting in new wire. So to avoid that, we're going to adjust the tension. So I've backed this way down because this was real high, so I can show you exactly how to set tension on these. And it only takes a minute. You should do this every time you set up a reel of wire. So I've just got a block of wood, and I'm just going to pull the trigger. Okay, I'm not wearing any safety gear, nothing. Okay, I'm just going to pull the trigger, and I'm going to hold it straight on and watch. Okay, so I'm still pulling the trigger, and the machine's still spinning. You can see that that drive roll is spinning, but the wire reel isn't moving. It's slipping right there. So that's what you want so it doesn't bird's nest, but you also don't want it so slack that just the little bit of pressure from the wire making contact to the metal slowly has a little slip. You don't want that. So we're going to give it one full turn, and we're going to give it a try. Okay, we'll try it again. That feels pretty good, guys. I can feel a little bit of pressure, and it feels like it wants to push the gun up. Okay, so it's like trying to push it up, and if I keep holding it, there we go, and it will push it. Okay, so initially that wire tension setting would have been way too tight for what we want. So now to check it, to fine tune it, I'll show you how I do it. Push a little wire out, just like this. Grab it really hard, and the wire's just barely sliding through my fingers. So I know that that tension is perfect. And if you can't stop the wire at all with your fingers, if you can't stop it, then you have too much tension. You have to be able to stop the wire with your fingers and have it still spin in here to be adjusted properly. It's not as important when you're running like flux core or solid wire. Knowing how to set that tension when it matters is when you're running aluminum. That's why I want you guys to know how to do this. But that's how I set the tension on all types of MIG, whether it's flux core, solid wire, or aluminum. So now we've got everything set, guys, other than our current or our amperage, and we've got to pick a setting. We've got some 1/8 inch steel that we're going to be welding. 1/8 inch is 125 thousandths. A quick way to remember is 1 amp per 1,000. So if you got 125 thousandths metal, weld it with 125 amps. That's a good starting point. So now all we do is just turn this knob, set it to 125, And that's a good starting area right there. Now that'll automatically adjust the voltage, 16.7. And that'll also adjust the wire feed speed too, because it's in synergic mode right there. So the other parameters are arc length, and that ranges from 5 down to -5. And basically that is just a fine-tuning mode. You can go up or down. We'll mess with these. We'll play with them a little bit here and there, but we're going to set it for 0 for right now. Now we can press this and toggle. That's inductance. Now inductance ranges from -10 to +10. Again, we'll mess with that a little bit. Basically what inductance is, and we're not going to get a whole lot into this, is if you increase the inductance, that works a little bit better for thicker material. Negative decrease works better for thinner material. When you increase the inductance, it reduces spatter and it gives you a wetter puddle. So it'll be like a flatter profile. When you reduce it, it'll be a lot pointier, a lot narrower, tends to be a little more spatter, but it also works better for thinner material. So for right now, we're just going to leave it at 0. All things aside, if you leave all your settings alone and you just mess with inductance, basically it'll play with the bead profile, how much penetration and how fluid the weld puddle is. That's basically what that is. We'll mess with it though. So there's 2T and 4T. We all know what that is. That's like cruise control on a car. 2T, you pull the trigger, the wire feeds, you let off, the wire stops. 4T would be almost if you was using it on like robotics. Pull the trigger, let off, and the wire feeds. Pull the trigger, let off, and the wire stops. HS, so that's like a hot start. So that ranges from 10 to 0. 2 is the default, so that's where we're going to go with that. Then you have feeder speed, which is basically in correlation that goes up to 10 and goes down to 0. Increasing this will add feeder speed. Decreasing it will decrease it. 2 is the default. And burn back time, if you're welding and you've noticed that sometimes the wire will actually burn back into the tip, you can play with that setting and that'll help decrease that too. So, but the default is 2. You may not need to use that. That's more of, again, a fine-tune adjustment, but we'll keep it on 2. But that burn back would be a handy feature if you have excess wire at the end of your weld when you stop. You know, once you let off the trigger, you weld, let off the trigger. If you have a real long piece of wire sticking out, you may want to reduce that burn back time. So this is all set up, ready to go. Let's give it a shot. And we also got to make sure that we turn on our gas valve. Again, standing off to the side, opening it slowly. And you open it all the way so it gets a good seal. The next thing we want to do is we want to get some gas to this MIG gun so that when we pull the trigger, it doesn't push air out and then the gas, the shielding gas. We want to make sure we have gas the minute we pull the trigger. So one way of doing that without ejecting a bunch of wire, let me show you. All you got to do is take your feed tension, get rid of it, and now pull the trigger and wire won't come out. Listen. Hear that? Now we have gas all the way to the tip of the MIG gun. Then just put your tensioning device back. And there it is. You're ready to go. Oh, and one other setting that I wanted to tell you about this welder is that it has an impressive 60% duty cycle. So what that means is in a 10-minute period, you can weld for 6 minutes before this would need to stop and cool down. And it would have to rest for 4. And then you could weld for another 6 continuously again. That's an awesome duty cycle for a budget-friendly welder. And one other thing, guys, just make sure you're comfortable. That's the next important thing. If you're comfortable, you're going to get a better weld than if you're working out of position and you're not. So, all right, let's do this. There you go. That was the first weld ever, guys. There it is. That looks pretty good, and it sounded pretty good too. All right, let's mess around with that inductance a little bit, and you can listen to the difference between the two. Under the same settings that we had with the inductance set at whatever it was set at, I think it was 0. Let's give that a try. Okay, I did no weaving action, no nothing, and I went really slow to make a proud bead. You can see it right there. Let me mess with the inductance. Let's do inductance of 6. This should sound different, and it should create a more fluid weld puddle. Again, inductance works a little better. If all your settings stayed the same and you just need to adjust it a little bit, you get a little bit more penetration, more fluid with the higher inductance. Alright, so look at the difference, guys. The only thing that changed was inductance. I did the same travel speed, no technique, so I didn't do any side to side. And you can see with the inductance of 6 versus the inductance of 0. Now let's go negative. We'll do another bead here and I'll do negative, and this should even get narrower and even more proud. So we'll do negative 10. This should make a real proud, tall bead, but this would be real good for thin sheet metal. So that one's negative 10. Not a lot of difference between 0 and negative 10. Now let's go positive 10. This one was positive 6, let's go positive 10. This one should be a fairly wide weld. Alright, positive 10 inductive. And with that inductance, guys, it felt like I actually needed to make the weld puddle a little bit hotter. I would have had to have adjusted my amperage. It just wasn't enough. You see the stick out on that? Let's change the Burnback setting a little bit and we'll see what that does. So we got our inductance back to 0, and let's change the Burnback to, let's say 10. I'm going to cut this flush and we'll see where it ends up at the end of the weld. Okay, you see it? It's out probably 5/8 of an inch, I would say. That's the bead profile right there. That is inductance of 0, Burnback of 10. Now we'll change the Burnback time to 0, the lowest it'll go. Now we haven't changed any of the settings other than the Burnback time, so we'll see if it's longer or shorter. So you can see that Burnback is a little less now. So that's just another fine-tune adjustment. Increasing the Burnback time will make the stick out a little bit longer because it increases how long it's electrically charged. Decreasing it have an effect of making the stick out a little bit shorter after you terminate the weld. Alright, now we'll mess with the HS feature, or the hot start. Default is 2, we'll go all the way to 10. Let me try it again. Alright, let's go the other direction. Let's go down to 0. Now I'm going to set it for 5. Back down to 2. So increasing the hot start current is pretty straightforward. When you increase it or max it out to 10, it actually, you can hear it, it's real crisp. It's like bang, 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 bang when it's first starting. And it's a real hard, crisp arc. As opposed to when you turn it all the way down to 0, which is its lowest setting, and that's the default, it just kind of like, it feels like it's soft, it's a soft start. I mean, you can hear, especially if I do it inside the tube, I'll actually weld inside the tube, and you'll hear how it's like bang, bang, bang. It's a real hard hitting. So I've got it maxed out again at 10. Let me do that again. You'll hear it for like the first few, it's like bang, 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 and then it smooths out. Here it goes, listen. Smoothing out right there. We'll do it one more time. As opposed to, let's say, I think 2 was the default. So on 2, you still get that hot start. It's just a shorter duration before it flattens out to 130 amps. By increasing that hot start all the way up to 10, that hot start voltage, that increase in voltage is lasting for longer, and then it peaks down. That might be kind of handy if you had like some dirty weld metal or something really thick that you needed to get a real high current to get it started and then finish it up. And the last setting I'm messing with is that RIN, which is the feeder speed. That is just a fine-tune adjustment, up or down. 0 being the default, 10 being just a slight increase in wire feed speed. Let me put it down to 0. Alright, so that was a wire speed of 10. You can see how it just put more metal down. It's a wider bead, there's more of it. It looks a little more snottier. This one is at 0, which is at the default, and you can see how it's not as wide of a bead. It's a little bit more proud, tall and pointy. So 10 again is increasing your wire speed. It's just going to give you a little, it's just a fine tuning. You're not moving it much. It's just increasing the speed a little bit more. Now, not a lot of people talk about this, but there is a procedure to shutting down everything. So shut your bottle down, close that all the way, like that. Shut that down tight. Take the tension off your wire feed again. Now press your MIG gun and let all the pressure off your gauges. So, and you got to have your welder running to do this. Watch, all the gauge pressure will bleed off. There you go. There's nothing in there. Now back off your diaphragm gauge. This would be the adjustment. Back that off. Then you can shut down your machine. And this one runs for a few seconds after you turn it off, just to allow everything to clear out. And then just make sure to remember to put your tensioning device back so you're ready for the next time. Alright guys, so I think that gives you a pretty good idea of what those settings do. Again, they're minute adjustments, so it's not going to have huge effects on the weld quality and the overall appearance, but it does have an effect nonetheless. I'm going to do a 3-part series on this welder. I think we've covered this with solid wire. We'll do some with aluminum wire, then we'll do some stick welding. We don't necessarily need to talk about it with flux core wire, because flux core wire and solid wire, they're just going to be the same settings, pretty much the same. You're just going to have to reverse polarity down here. That's it. So be sure to stay tuned and check out some upcoming episodes if you want to know about this welder. This is an awesome welder for the money. Again, like I said, I paid around $540 for this at the time of this posting, and in my opinion, this is an awesome welder for the money. You can't beat it. For a multi-process welder that does MIG, TIG, and stick. And that's all there is to it. I want to thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for tuning in. If you're wondering what I'm working on before it makes it up to YouTube, you guys can catch me on Facebook and on Instagram. New videos every Friday. If you're wondering about any of the things that you see in this video, I'll have links down below. You guys can check it out and you'll save yourself a pile of money. And I got merch, so check it out. See ya. So guys, like I told you in the beginning of the video, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about my experience with COVID. If you're not interested in hearing about this, just stop right here, because there's really nothing I'm gonna say beyond this that would be relevant to welding. The only reason I'm telling you this is because it kind of, for me, kind of changed my life a little bit, so I figured it was kind of too good to not share with you. I got COVID and I felt terrible, but prior to getting COVID, probably like 3 weeks prior, I just started not feeling right. I was getting like sore throats, lots of headaches, I was getting stomach pains, my sleep patterns were off, I wasn't sleeping good, and it just kind of like was a slow progression. And I didn't feel sick like you would if you had like a cold or a flu. I just didn't feel right, and I didn't feel like me. And I had foggy, kind of like a foggy head at times. I actually thought maybe something medically was wrong with me. I was actually kind of worried about it. Fast forward, one night I had a fever of 102.7, and that following day I took a COVID test, I tested positive. So that kind of explained to me what those symptoms I had up until getting COVID. I was a little bit more relieved that it wasn't maybe something bigger than just getting COVID. You know, when you've got foggy head and stuff like that, and you're 51 years old, you start thinking the worst. I had gone to a chiropractor probably a month prior to this. I've always been into weightlifting and construction, and the combination of the two just has kind of like worn my body out. So I've got some like injuries from weightlifting and whatnot, but my neck's been bothering me. I think that has to do with lifting stuff, and you know, again, I'm getting older, and that was the problem. So I went to see the chiropractor, not the chiropractor, I'm sorry, an acupuncturist. I had been seeing a chiropractor, and it was kind of helping. My wife suggested I go see a guy that does acupuncture. So within like one visit, he had already had fixed all the issues I had in my neck, pretty much in one visit. I've only gone to this guy 3 times total, and then I got COVID, and fast forward 2 weeks, I'm all better, but I still don't feel better now. I'm not contagious, but I just don't feel like me. I'm not sleeping good at night. My stomach still hurts. I'm getting headaches, foggy head, and just didn't feel right. It was to the point where I was going to get ready to make an appointment to go see a doctor because I thought maybe something else was wrong. I did a little research on COVID, and they said, yeah, these are side effects or can be side effects to COVID. They actually have like a long-term disability for COVID due to these side effects. This isn't like your average flu. I get sick basically once a year. I just take a bunch of over-the-counter drugs, shove them down my throat, and keep going to work. Pretty much. I very rarely miss work. I just push through it. This whole not feeling right was very unusual for me. So my wife said, call the acupuncture guy, see what he can do, make an appointment. So I went there, and I said, hey guy, can you, I got COVID about 2 weeks ago. I just haven't felt right. And I explained to him the symptoms. You know, I feel really foggy headed. That's got me concerned. I got headaches, I got stomach aches, my sleep problems. I'm not sleeping for crap. And he said, yeah, that's no problem at all. I need to reset, basically reset you. And I said, well, whatever. So I'm just laying down on the thing. He's doing like his needle things. Trust me, guys, it sounds like it would hurt. It's not. I'm not one to want to experience uncomfortable or unpleasurable pain. So putting needles in me is not my ideal of fun. It's not a problem. It doesn't hurt at all. It's kind of relaxing. And then he does like this cupping thing. It's like, you can read about it. Just Google it, cupping and stuff. After that visit, I went home, went to sleep. I got the best sleep I've ever had in probably months. And I was thinking, okay, maybe it's like a placebo effect. Somebody tells you that things are good, life's great, and you are instantly relieved, and because you have these positive thoughts, you start feeling better. So I wear a smartwatch. I looked up my sleeping habits and stress levels, and dug into that, and it's real. It was real. It wasn't like a placebo effect. I saw that prior to me going to this acupuncture guy that I had not been sleeping. I had not been getting good rest. I wasn't getting quality rest, and my stress was a little bit higher than usual. And after the acupuncture, my sleep has been incredibly good. And I've only gone one time for this COVID thing. So I guess what I'm getting at is I'm not trying to tell you that if you've had COVID and you just don't quite feel right to ignore all that. I didn't go to a doctor. I literally just went to this acupuncture guy, but for me that worked. I would never tell you to not go to your doctor if you don't feel right, get blood work, get it, whatever you need to have done, have it checked out. But for me, this acupuncture kind of changed my life. I was really worried. The headaches went away, the brain fog went away. It was almost overnight. So I think that this was just too important for me to not share, because right now pretty much everybody has COVID, and if you don't have it, you're probably going to get it. And I don't really see a lot of information elsewhere that says that, you know, if you get COVID, you could have these long-term effects that might not make you feel like yourself, like just not you. For me, the acupuncture, whatever it did, it just kind of like resets your balance, I guess, or I don't know. I don't know how it works, but it just works. I don't need to know how it works, but it does, and it worked for me. My copay was like $35, so it was just, for me, too good not to share. Like I said, everybody's probably had COVID. If you know someone who's had COVID, maybe you know somebody who just hasn't felt right since they had COVID. It's just another tool in your toolbox, and it's something I wanted to share to you because it impacted my life so greatly that I feel like I needed to pass this on to you. Whether you do it or not, I don't know, but it's just another tool in your toolbox, something to try if you've tried other things and it's not working. I take multivitamins every day. I take zinc every day. I take vitamin B, and I take vitamin C, and I've been doing that for quite a while. It didn't prevent me from getting COVID, but who knows, I could have been a lot sicker than I was. I want to thank you guys for just hearing me out. Hopefully it gets you some relief if you've had COVID. And that's it, guys. So thank you for your time. Be well, God bless, rest up, take good care of yourself, because the COVID is no fun. Thanks for watching, guys. Like, comment, subscribe. New videos every Friday. I'll see you next week. See ya.